Nuclear war in India? 500,000 people may have died from a nuclear blast in India 12,000 years ago. The evidence isn't archaeological, meaning there's no physical proof of such an explosion. The evidence can instead be found in ancient Hindu texts from thousands of years before today. Pages in the Sanskrit epic Mahabharata detail a legendary war between the Hindu god Rama and the demon Ravana. The passage was written about 2,800 years ago. In the text, there are several very unusual passages that describe the detonation of an atomic bomb with uncanny accuracy. There are a lot of passages, but here's one that really sticks out. The Mahabharata says, "A single projectile charged with all the power in the universe." Yep, that sounds like an atomic bomb. The text goes on to say the explosion caused an incandescent column of smoke and flame brighter than 10,000 suns. It was called an iron thunderbolt, a messenger of death that destroyed an entire race. The text certainly seems to be describing a nuclear blast. There's no other explanation for what could cause such a large explosion. There are other passages too, talking about how food was infected and how soldiers threw themselves in the river to escape the fire. Birds fell from the sky, and pottery shattered. I said earlier that there's no physical evidence, and that's true according to mainstream archaeologists. But there is a theory that the Lona crater near Mumbai is highly radioactive from something nuclear. Mainstream scientists say that's ridiculous, but there are rumors that locals have been suffering from cancer and birth defects for centuries. The Indus Valley disappearance. The Indus Valley civilization was one of the oldest human societies that ever existed. They were extremely advanced in the ways of technology and government. They had a unique culture, they built enormous cities, and they achieved great feats of engineering. They even had their own written language. It all started around 2600 BC at the top of the Indian subcontinent, in modern Pakistan and parts of India, Iran, and Afghanistan. Their lifeblood was the Indus River, allowing for mass agriculture and the rise of real civilization. The first evidence of these people was found in the ruins of Harappa in 1826. Ever since, experts have been trying to figure out exactly what happened to the Indus Valley, because around 1900 BC, their civilization suddenly vanished. This was a big deal because there were a lot of people in the kingdom. Harappa itself was a metropolis with at least 50,000 people in it. It was a major urban city with a sophisticated street layout. People came here from all over the region to trade and find work. Then, for a reason nobody can explain, the whole place was abandoned. The degradation of their society is a unique mystery because there isn't any evidence to show what happened. Even though they left behind a written language, there are no texts to explain their demise. Some suggest they were stricken by a drought, which caused widespread famine. Others suggested it was political instability. They may have even been destroyed by a rival civilization, although there isn't any evidence of battles or slaughters. Whatever happened, the entirety of the civilization ceased to exist by 1300 BC. The Thera eruption. Approximately 3,580 years ago, the Thera volcano erupted and destroyed a civilization. It was a devastating volcanic blast that was felt across the globe. Scientists studying pine trees in North America have even found evidence of the eruption there, even though it happened in Greece. The eruption was only 60 miles away from the Minoans, living on the island of Crete. The Minoan Islanders were one of the original Greek societies. They were a brilliant group of people who had palaces, navy fleets, and lots of money. They prospered through trade, building the first paved roads in Europe. The Minoans are believed to have been the first people in Europe to have running water. They were on their way to developing a truly modern civilization at the forefront of many different areas of science. But then the Thera volcano blew its top and they all died. Many scholars believe Crete was Plato's inspiration for his story of Atlantis. If this volcano had not erupted, humanity could be significantly more advanced today. The Minoans flourished for 1,200 years, making huge strides in everything from architecture to chemistry. They even introduced the world to spears, shields, armor, and metal battle axes. These people were unstoppable. Well, almost unstoppable. The force of the volcano was so intense that it likely destroyed most of their cities. It also likely sent ash into the sky, blocking out the sun and causing crops to wither. If they weren't killed by the explosion, they ran out of food. Crete was mostly deserted after 1560 BC. I wanted to give a big thank you to Sendex Music and Blender Study for supporting this channel. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already for more videos about amazing discoveries. The Great Tsunami. 8,000 years ago, a tsunami swept across the North Sea. The tsunami was enormous, decimating prehistoric societies living in Northern Europe. The tsunami came at the end of the Ice Age. Up until 12,000 years ago, Earth was gripped by an intense period of global cooling. It started around 110,000 years ago, encasing the planet in ice. When that ice started to melt, sea levels around the globe rose dramatically. Prehistoric people living in Europe were already losing their villages to sea level rise. When the tsunami struck, their villages were wiped off the face of the Earth. Scientists believe it was a submarine landslide off the coast of Norway that created the tsunami. They call the event the Storegga Slide. Enough debris crumbled in the underwater avalanche that the subsequent wave separated Britain from mainland Europe. You may have heard of Doggerland before, the ancient stretch of land that connected Britain to Europe. It disappeared about 8,000 years ago when it was buried by the sea, but it may have happened more abruptly than scientists previously thought. The tsunami may have washed away what remained of Doggerland, taking the prehistoric villages with it. Scientists know people lived on a stretch of land between Britain and Europe, but almost nothing has ever been found of them other than some pieces of flint and random Stone Age artifacts. The lack of evidence is likely the fault of the tsunami that washed them away. The Stone Age Plague. 5,000 years ago, during the Stone Age, a plague decimated society. Researchers recently uncovered a woman buried in a tomb in Sweden. She was a farmer who lived and died during the plague, as was confirmed by the presence of Yersinia pestis in her bones. Yersinia pestis is the bacterium that causes the plague, also known as the Black Death. The sample found in this dead farmer's bones is one of the oldest in the world. Scientists are now suspecting it was the plague that was responsible for the collapse of Stone Age societies across Europe. They're calling it the world's first pandemic. Kyle Harper from the University of Oklahoma said it's starting to seem like the plague is everywhere. It's already been found to have decimated Eurasian populations 4,800 years ago. It nearly toppled the Roman Empire in the 6th century during the Justinian plague. Then there's the most famous incident of the 1300s, when an estimated half of Europe's population was killed. This new discovery shows that the plague dates even further back, disrupting life in the European Stone Age. In Eastern Europe during the Stone Age, there was a mighty civilization known as the Trilia Culture. They built mega settlements that contained tens of thousands of people. They weren't technically cities, but they were some of the big first population centers created by humans. Scientists think it was in these mega settlements where the plague first took root. People lived in close quarters with poor sanitation. People started storing grain and other foods that likely attracted rodents. It was the first time humanity had created a place where a disease like the plague could thrive. 5,400 years ago, the mega settlements collapsed. The Trilia culture disintegrated as their settlements were abandoned and their buildings were burned. Researchers believe it was the plague that wiped them out, causing them to leave their homes and burn them to get rid of the disease. The aliens are already dead. A new study has suggested that there were alien civilizations in our galaxy before human life even evolved. The study claims planets within a few short light years of Earth could contain the ruins of extinct alien civilizations. There could be whole planets of intelligent life that destroyed themselves through technological advances around 8 billion years ago. The study was completed by scientists with the NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory, along with researchers from the California Institute of Technology. The idea is that intelligent life is almost always likely to destroy itself. The only reason humans are still alive is that the alien civilizations that already went extinct did so a long time ago. Humans haven't had time to hit self-destruct yet. Based on the star formation rates and the dates of exoplanet formation of the Milky Way, scientists already know when it was possible for life near us. The supposed aliens would have been able to evolve 8 billion years after the formation of the Milky Way. In comparison, humans didn't evolve until 5.5 billion years later. These aliens could have theoretically traveled to Earth before the dinosaurs were around. The study considered the number of potentially habitable planets that once orbited thriving stars. Researchers also looked at the dates in which the stars died, rendering the planets inhabitable. Based on all the various factors, the scientists are confident that alien civilizations did exist, but their planets were habitable long before Earth, so now all those civilizations are gone. If humans ever expand to explore the stars, the study suggests future astronauts could find alien ruins billions of years old. What do you think of this theory? Let me know in the comments and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. The big one. Scientists have finally identified the biggest earthquake to have ever shaken the planet in human history. It happened 3,800 years ago in Chile. The earthquake was biblical by every sense of the word. It would have registered 9.5 on the modern Richter scale. Researchers think the earthquake was so violent that it caused a tsunami 5,000 miles long. That's a tsunami so big, it would strike pretty much all of America's coastline. The earthquake was something known as a megathrust earthquake. It's the most powerful type of earthquake known to science. It happens only when two tectonic plates have been locked together for a significant amount of time. Friction is built up for centuries, then suddenly the plates release from one another. The force of that release, with the explosion of all that pent-up friction, causes a rupture at the surface. It also releases an epic amount of energy. Archaeologists have found coastal items in Chile far from the shoreline in the Atacama Desert, likely pushed there by the enormous tsunami. Another reason scientists know there was a giant tsunami is that stone structures have been found lying backward, pointing at the sea. Researchers think entire cities were toppled by the currents of water. They were knocked toward the sea during the tsunami's backwash. Geologist James Goff from the University of Southampton said the local population would have been left with nothing. The investigation has shown that for 1,000 years, nobody lived on the coast again. They were so terrified of another earthquake and tsunami that they fled inland and didn't look back. This was a whole civilization of which nearly nothing is left, erased by the earthquake. Ancient flooding in China. 4,000 years ago, one of the most advanced civilizations in China disappeared in the blink of an eye. Up until now, scientists weren't really sure what happened. They've been busy studying the ruins of Liangzhu City in hopes of finding out what killed the highly advanced society. Liangzhu City has been called the Chinese Venice of the Stone Age because of its sophisticated water reservoirs and canals. It was a walled city that could be navigated using small boats, just like Venice. It would have been a spectacular city to see at the edge of the Yangtze River, comparable to anything in Europe or Mesopotamia. During recent excavations, archaeologists found a thin layer of clay on top of the preserved ruins. They think the clay came from a flood. After 1,000 years of prospering here, the Yangtze River overflowed and Liangzhu City was utterly decimated. The problem was likely worsened by an unprecedented series of monsoon rains. The dams and canals built by the brilliant engineers couldn't take all the water, resulting in catastrophic failure. Everyone was forced to flee the city, bringing an end to a millennium of progress. The death of Easter Island. When Dutch captain Jacob Roggeveen arrived on Easter Island in 1722, he wrote that there were roughly 3,000 people living on it. 20 years later, when Captain Cook arrived, he was flabbergasted by the enormous statues around the island called moai. He was also shocked that there were so few people on the island. Captain Cook figured that because of the monuments, there must have been at least 10,000 or 20,000 people at one point. This is where the myth of Easter Island's destruction originated. Ever since, people have been trying to figure out where the people of Easter Island went. There have been a lot of theories over the years, many of them supported by scientists. For a long time, it was thought Easter Island destroyed itself by using all their natural resources. Then they fell into a civil war and killed most of their own population. The island is covered in sharpened pieces of obsidian, which look an awful lot like the ends of spears. These artifacts have been seen as remnants of war, perpetuating the myth of a great massacre on the island. However, recent studies have shown the obsidian shards were likely tools instead of weapons. After Europeans arrived in the 18th century, the population of the island dipped dramatically. Within a short time, the population was cut in half. But this wasn't anything that the people of Easter Island did. It was the Europeans bringing diseases like smallpox and plague. These days, scientists don't think there was any disaster on Easter Island. The Polynesians who found it and built a civilization on it likely never exceeded a population of around 3,000. The only real destruction came with the Europeans and their sicknesses. Which great civilization do you think will be the next to fall? Let me know your theories in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for watching, and come back soon for more awesome videos from the channel.